Breaking news. The press standing by to enter the East Room at the White House for President Trump to swear in America's new chairman of the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh. We know the focus has been on the economy right now, and it hinges on lowering interest rates. Would this new Fed chair do what the old Fed chair would not and help Americans benefit from things like lower interest rates? We will cover this live when it happens. Also, President Trump is holding firm as he waits for Iran to respond to a potential peace deal. Of course, we know the major sticking points: Iran's uranium that's been enriched to different degrees. They want to take it further. But as we heard from the Secretary of State Rubio today, they can never have a nuclear weapon. And also, they can never have control over that oil shipping lane that's so critical, not just to countries in the West, but around the world, the Strait of Hormuz. The conflict is a major focus at a high-stakes NATO summit, where I mentioned the Secretary of State says there's been some slight progress in the negotiations. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Iran reportedly is in talks with Oman, an American friend in the Middle East, on a plan to charge fees for ships passing through the strait. And the Trump administration repeatedly has warned against Iran's attempt to permanently control that critical waterway. Here is Secretary of State Rubio.
Iran is trying to create a tolling system. They're trying to convince Oman, by the way, to join them in this tolling system in an international waterway. I don't know of anyone in the world that should be in favor of a tolling system in an international waterway. That's just not acceptable. It can't happen. If that were to happen in the Straits of Hormuz, it will happen in 5 other places around the world.
And Iran also is digging in its heels regarding its uranium, as I just mentioned, resisting President Trump's calls to give it up. The regime has about 440 kilograms of uranium that have already been enriched to about 60%. That's enough to produce some nuclear bombs, although if they get beyond that, that capacity grows exponentially. Once it reaches that weapons-grade level, and significant portions are believed to be buried deep underground, it would be very difficult to get to them. President Trump is making his bottom line, though, very clear on this.
Right now we're negotiating, and we'll see. But either we're going to get it one way or the other. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. You know, you will have a nuclear war in the Middle East, and that war will come here. That war will go to Europe. We cannot let that happen, and it won't happen. It's not going to happen. That's more important than anything else. We can't I can think of nothing that's more important than the fact that we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and we won't.
We are covering all of this from all angles, as we always do here on The Focus. General Charles Wald, a former deputy commander of U.S. European Command, will join me moments from now. I want to begin with foreign correspondent Jeff Paul, who's in Dubai right now. Jeff.
Yeah, Harrison, an advisor for the president here in the UAE says at the moment, in his opinion, he thinks there's a 50-50 chance that the U.S. and Iran agree on a future peace deal. He says his concern is that in the past, Iran has sort of overplayed or overestimated the cards they carry, and he's hoping that's not the case this time. Meanwhile, President Trump says that he's allowing those negotiations to continue as Iran is said to be currently reviewing the latest proposal. We also know Pakistan is intensifying its efforts to mediate the process, with several reports indicating its army chief is on the way to Tehran. On top of that, Reuters says Qatar has sent a negotiating team to Iran to help secure a deal to end the war. But at the same time, Iran is seemingly sending a very provocative message to Washington with this map. It shows large areas of control in the Strait of Hormuz that stretch to the shores of the United Arab Emirates and Oman. Iran is now reportedly in talks with Oman over working together to control the strait and even charge tolls. President Trump responding to that report this way.
Well, we're looking at it. We hear about it. They've negotiated. They've had a relationship with them before. And we'll see. We have total control of the Strait of Hormuz, as you know, with our blockade. The blockade's been 100% effective. Nobody's been able to get through it. We want it open. We want it free. We don't want tolls. It's international. It's an international waterway. They're not charging tolls.
Now, officials here in the UAE also say that any sort of control over the Strait of Hormuz would have serious global implications. They also say prior to the war, Iran's nuclear program was a priority 2 or 3 for them. It is now their #1 priority. Harris.
Jeff, thank you. In focus now, retired U.S. Air Force General Charles Wald, a former deputy commander of U.S. European Command. He's also a distinguished fellow at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America. General, great to have you today. First of all, this seems really complicated. Simple from our end, can't have a nuclear weapon. But for Iran, they're now sending back maps, and it's like they want to redistrict their area over there and count us out. Are we going to get a deal, do you think?
Well, I hope we get a deal, but I would say this. I think the Iranians talk big, they talk tough, but they're really in no position to do that. I mean, they do threaten some of the transit through the Straits of Hormuz area, but the United States military, in this case, with some of our allies, is in control of the Straits of Hormuz. I think what the president just said is exactly right. I think it's time for us to probably be a little less patient than we've been, and we need to go back and probably have to do a little more kinetic activity militarily. There's still military targets we should go after. But it's almost ludicrous that the Iranians think they can barter with this. And I think Secretary Rubio said the right thing, frankly.
General Wald, can you talk to me about, like, the steps? Would it be an incremental? Would we just go in and hit those targets right away? Because all of the neighbors that we call friends and partners strategically in that region, yeah, I mean, you hear Qatar has sent someone to be part of the negotiations. They lay bare because they're so close to the enemy.
Well, I think we should try to have the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council states, Kuwait, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, for that matter, participate with us. I'm a little bit distressed that Oman is talking like they're going to have some kind of collaboration with the Iranians on a toll. That's out of the question.
Interesting.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. You don't think that that will happen? Does it make it more difficult for our end to press and get what we want in that deal?
Actually, I think it makes it more clear that we're probably going to have to do some kinetic action go forward. There's no way we're going to have a toll in the Straits of Hormuz. As the Secretary mentioned, that's just out of the question. So and I don't think Oman's really part of that party, but you hear this discussion, it's almost beyond ludicrous. There's no way that's going to happen. The United States Navy will stop that in a heartbeat.
You mentioned Secretary Rubio, and I have a couple of times. He's in Sweden for NATO meetings. Rubio also addressed the criticism of our NATO allies earlier. Let's watch.
The president's views, frankly, disappointment at some of our NATO allies and their response to our operations in the Middle East. They're well documented. That will have to be addressed.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was in NATO for a large portion of my career, and as you mentioned, I was the deputy commander for the U.S. forces in NATO in my last assignment. I think NATO should be more actively involved particularly in the securing the Straits of Hormuz with us. They're doing a good job for Ukraine. I get that, but I think NATO. We've asked them. I think they should participate, and I agree.
You know, it's interesting. You just brought up Ukraine. And, I mean, we know Russia's going to do what it does. It's always going to ramp up if it thinks the world is not focusing on that particular section, so it can kind of move in. Some of the response from NATO, though, has been to fortify Poland and other areas of Europe that are close to Russia. I read that we are considering sending 5,000 U.S. troops to that area. What do you think about that?
I support it. I support everything we can do for NATO in the Ukraine issue. I think Ukrainian military and government's done a fantastic job of defending itself. I think it's put Russia in a tough spot from the standpoint they were. You know, the saying goes that Russia had the second best military in the world before it invaded Ukraine. Now they have the second best military in Ukraine. That's a truism. It's not just funny.
Oh.
So I think they've identified a weakness in Russia. I think they've shown great courage, and I think we should support them.
General Wald, we'll all be watching together across this holiday weekend to see next steps around the world, but particularly with Iran. Good to have you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.